The Galactic Academy's Most Curious Seminar. The Galactic Academy buzzed with a mix of excitement and trepidation as its largest lecture hall prepared for the long-awaited seminar on xenobiology. Students from across the universe, representing countless species, filled the room with vibrant colors and unfamiliar sounds. Among them was Kalen, a young alien researcher from the planet Corvex. With shimmering silver skin and multifaceted, gem-like eyes, Kalen had always been curious about the universe's many species. But none had captured his interest quite like the humans, enigmatic beings who had recently emerged onto the galactic stage. Humans were odd. Their homeworld, Earth, seemed unremarkable, a small, temperamental planet on the fringes of the galaxy. Yet in a matter of centuries, they had developed technologies and ideas that rivaled civilizations millennia older. This rapid ascent baffled even the brightest minds at the Academy. For Kalen, humans were a puzzle he couldn't wait to unravel. As he settled into his seat, his gaze wandered to a small group of human students sitting together near the front. They laughed, their faces flushed with color, as one of them gestured animatedly. Their movements were so expressive, their voices carrying a unique cadence that stood out from the more reserved hum of other species. Kalen found himself both intrigued and slightly unnerved. How could a species so outwardly chaotic achieve so much in so little time? The room fell silent as Professor Halleck entered. A towering figure with translucent skin that shifted colors with every step, Halleck was known for his unflinching honesty and cutting wit. His presence demanded attention, and the lecture hall's ambient hum faded into stillness. "Good day, students," Halleck began, his voice resonating like a deep chime. "Today's topic is one of particular interest, humans. Specifically, their reproductive biology." Kalen blinked. Of all the subjects to study, why this? Reproduction was a straightforward matter for most species, cyclical, efficient, and predictable. It seemed unlikely that humans, of all beings, would offer anything revolutionary in this area. Halleck activated the holographic display, and a three-dimensional image of a human male rotated above the podium. The figure was muscular, with a striking symmetry to its form that drew murmurs of interest from the audience. Kalen noticed several students leaning forward, their curiosity piqued. "Humans," Halleck continued, "are unlike any other species we've encountered. Their reproductive biology defies the patterns found in most advanced civilizations. While many species have evolved seasonal cycles or mating periods to maximize efficiency, humans have developed an entirely different approach. They are always fertile." A collective gasp rippled through the hall. Kalen's multifaceted eyes widened as he tried to process the implications of Halleck's statement. Always fertile. Such a thing seemed inefficient at best and biologically reckless at worst. To put it simply, Halleck explained, human males produce viable reproductive cells throughout their entire lifespan. There is no seasonal restraint, no predictable cycle. They are biologically driven to seek out mates constantly. Laughter erupted from a group of reptilian students in the back. One of them hissed, "So they're just perpetually in chaos." Halleck raised a hand, silencing the noise. "It may seem chaotic, but this trait has played a significant role in their survival. Consider the environment of their homeworld, unpredictable, often hostile, and teeming with threats. Their constant fertility ensured that even in times of extreme hardship, their population could recover." Kalen scribbled notes furiously, his mind racing. The concept was as fascinating as it was perplexing. He couldn't help but wonder how such an unrelenting drive shaped human culture and relationships. Did it lead to constant conflict? Or had they found ways to adapt? Of course, Halleck continued, this biological feature extends beyond mere reproduction. The same hormones that fuel their fertility, testosterone in particular, also contribute to their aggression, creativity, and resilience. Humans are, quite literally, wired to push boundaries. To survive. To thrive. The human students in the front row exchanged knowing smirks, clearly enjoying the attention their species was receiving. Kalen, meanwhile, felt a flicker of admiration. Perhaps the humans' relentless nature wasn't chaos after all. Perhaps it was their greatest strength. "Professor," a soft, melodic voice interrupted. It came from Vea, a student from the aquatic world of Thalassa. Her bioluminescent features glowed softly as she spoke. "If humans are always fertile, how do they maintain social order? Wouldn't such a drive lead to constant competition and conflict?" Halleck smiled, his skin shifting to a calm turquoise. "An excellent question. Humans have indeed faced challenges in managing these drives. However, they've also developed complex social structures, cultural norms, and technologies to regulate their behavior. It is this balance between raw instinct and intellectual control that makes them so unique." As the lecture continued, Kalen felt a growing sense of awe. The more he learned about humans, the more he realized how little he understood them. They were a species of contradictions, fragile yet resilient, chaotic yet ingenious. And while their biology seemed almost primitive, it was undeniably effective. By the time Halleck concluded, the room was buzzing with whispered conversations. Kalen remained in his seat, staring at the now dormant hologram. For the first time, he felt a genuine desire to understand humans, not just as subjects of study but as individuals. What drove them to achieve so much? How did they reconcile their instincts with their intellect? And most importantly, what could the galaxy learn from their relentless drive to survive? As the students filed out of the lecture hall, Kalen made a silent vow. He would learn everything he could about humans, no matter how strange or unpredictable their ways might be. Because if there was one thing he had learned today, it was this: humans were anything but ordinary. The human paradox. The Galactic Academy's corridors were alive with conversation as students spilled out of the lecture hall, their voices a medley of awe, disbelief, and intrigue. Among them, Kalen walked in reflective silence. The seminar on human reproduction had stirred something within him, a gnawing curiosity that refused to be quieted. The revelation that humans were always fertile, coupled with their capacity for resilience and chaos, painted a picture of a species teetering on the edge of logic and madness. Kalen found himself drawn toward the Academy's archives, a sprawling labyrinth of knowledge curated from across the galaxy. If humans truly defied every biological and cultural expectation, there had to be more to their story. The thought both exhilarated and unsettled him. Inside the archives, rows of towering crystalline shelves shimmered with stored data. Kalen activated a nearby console and entered the keyword, humans, behavioral studies. The display flickered to life, offering an overwhelming array of files. He selected a document titled The Human Paradox, Instinct versus Intellect. As he began reading, the complexity of human nature unfolded like an intricate tapestry. Humans, it seemed, were not bound by the deterministic cycles or rigid hierarchies that defined most advanced species. Instead, they thrived on contradictions. They could be savage yet compassionate, impulsive yet strategic. This duality was both their greatest weakness and their most profound strength. A surprising encounter. Lost in thought, Kalen didn't notice the presence behind him until a voice interrupted. "Curious, aren't they?" Startled, he turned to see a human standing nearby. She was shorter than him, with rich brown skin and keen, observant eyes that seemed to measure him in an instant. Her hair was styled in tight coils that framed her face like a halo. She wore the Academy's standard uniform, but her demeanor radiated confidence. "You startled me," Kalen admitted, his voice tinged with embarrassment. "I was just researching." "Humans?" she guessed, a knowing smile tugging at her lips. Kalen nodded. "Your species is fascinating. Confusing, but fascinating." The human extended a hand. "I'm Ava. And yes, we tend to have that effect on people." Kalen hesitated before shaking her hand, the gesture foreign but strangely comforting. "I'm Kalen. From Corvex." Nice to meet you, Kalen, Ava said warmly. Let me guess, Professor Halleck's lecture. How did you know? It's a rite of passage for any student who encounters humans for the first time. We're always the odd ones out, aren't we? Her tone was light, but there was a hint of pride beneath it. Kalen studied her, noting the subtle tension in her posture, as if she were both proud and defensive of her species. You don't seem offended by the way your biology was discussed, he observed. Ava shrugged. We're used to it. Humans are often seen as messy and unpredictable, but that's part of who we are. It's not a flaw, it's survival. We adapt, we push limits, and we don't wait for the universe to tell us what we can or can't do. Her words struck a chord with Kalen. Your constant fertility, it's not just biology, is it? It's a reflection of your species' philosophy. Always moving, always striving. Ava's smile widened. Now you're getting it. We don't just survive, we innovate, we create, we overcome. It's messy, sure, but it works. A challenge to the galaxy. Their conversation was interrupted by a loud, distorted chime that echoed through the archives. Kalen winced at the unexpected noise, but Ava merely rolled her eyes. That'll be the student debate in the Great Hall, she explained. It's on the ethics of human expansion into galactic territories. Want to come? It might give you more insight into what makes us tick. Intrigued, Kalen agreed, and the two of them made their way to the Great Hall. The vast chamber was already filled with students and professors from dozens of species, their voices creating a low roar of anticipation. At the center stood a raised platform where the debate participants took their places. The topic was contentious: are humans a threat to the balance of the galaxy? A reptilian student argued passionately against human expansion, citing their aggressive tendencies and unpredictable nature as reasons for concern. They lack the restraint and harmony that define advanced civilizations, he hissed. Their relentless drive will lead to conflict, not cooperation. A human student countered with equal fervor. What you call aggression, we call determination. What you see as chaos, we see as adaptability. Humanity's history is one of overcoming insurmountable odds. Yes, we're imperfect, but that imperfection is what drives us to be better. Kalen watched as the debate unfolded, each side presenting compelling arguments. For the first time, he began to see humans not as a curiosity but as a force of nature, unpredictable, yes, but undeniably impactful. The question that lingers. After the debate, Ava and Kalen lingered in the Great Hall. Kalen's mind swirled with questions, but one rose above the rest. Do you ever worry that your drive will lead to destruction? He asked. Ava's expression softened. Of course. But every species has its challenges. Ours just happen to be louder. What matters is that we don't let fear stop us from trying. We don't just react to the universe, we shape it. Her words left Kalen with a sense of wonder. Humans, for all their flaws, carried an undeniable spark. A refusal to accept the boundaries imposed by biology or circumstance. Perhaps that was what truly set them apart. As they parted ways, Kalen knew his journey to understand humanity was far from over. Their paradoxical nature was not a puzzle to be solved but a story to be experienced. And he couldn't wait to see what the next chapter would bring. A dangerous curiosity. The faint hum of energy pulsing through the Galactic Academy's corridors created an otherworldly backdrop as Kalen returned to his quarters. The day's revelations had left him restless. Humans were not just a biological anomaly, they were a challenge to everything the galaxy understood about survival and progress. Their unrelenting drive to adapt, create, and push beyond limits defied the carefully balanced order most civilizations sought to maintain. But there was a deeper question nagging at Kalen: if humans could thrive amidst chaos, what would happen if that chaos ever went unchecked? The thought both intrigued and unnerved him. Determined to learn more, he accessed his personal holo-terminal and navigated to a restricted database reserved for advanced researchers. With a few careful commands, he opened a file titled Uncharted Human Behaviors, The Edge of Logic. The document detailed human psychological patterns that had baffled researchers. Unlike most species, humans often pursued endeavors that offered no immediate survival benefit: art, philosophy, exploration for its own sake. They were driven not only by necessity but by an insatiable curiosity that could lead them to greatness, or ruin. This was why their rapid integration into the galactic community was met with equal parts admiration and suspicion. An unexpected invitation. As Kalen delved deeper into the file, his terminal chirped with an incoming message. A holographic image of Ava appeared, her expression both excited and serious. "Kalen, I hope I'm not interrupting," she began. "But I thought you'd want to know, there's an unsanctioned expedition happening tonight. A group of students is heading into the xenobiological preserve. They're planning to study the restricted sectors." Kalen blinked. "The preserve? That's off limits for a reason. What are they hoping to find?" Ava smirked. "Humans, of course. There's a rumor that some wild specimens were brought here for observation. It's probably nonsense, but curiosity's a hard thing to resist, especially for us." Her tone was light, but Kalen sensed the underlying tension. The preserve was one of the most dangerous areas of the Academy grounds, housing ecosystems that were both fragile and hostile. If the rumors were true and humans had been introduced to the preserve, the implications were staggering. "I don't think this is wise," Kalen said cautiously. "If humans are as unpredictable as we've learned, exposing them to an environment like that could have unintended consequences." Ava raised an eyebrow. "Exactly. That's why we need to see for ourselves." "Are you coming, or will you sit this one out?" Kalen hesitated. His instincts told him to stay far away, but his curiosity, his growing need to understand humans, overpowered his caution. "I'll come," he said at last. Into the preserve. The xenobiological preserve was a sprawling expanse of artificially maintained biomes, each mimicking the conditions of various alien worlds. It was as beautiful as it was dangerous, with dense foliage that glowed faintly under the Academy's artificial moonlight. Kalen followed Ava and a small group of students as they navigated the winding paths, their movements silent and deliberate. "Keep close," Ava whispered. "We don't know what we're walking into." The group reached a clearing where the air felt charged with an electric tension. In the center of the clearing stood an enclosure, a towering dome of shimmering energy that pulsed faintly in the dark. Within it, shadows moved. As they crept closer, the figures inside the enclosure came into view. There were 3 of them, humans, unmistakably. 2 males and 1 female. They appeared unkempt, their clothes tattered, and their movements restless, as if the confinement agitated them. Kalen's breath caught. Seeing humans in their raw, unfiltered state was both fascinating and unsettling. These were not the composed students he'd seen at the Academy. These were beings driven by instinct, their every motion charged with energy. "Why are they here?" Kalen whispered. "This violates every ethical protocol the Academy upholds." "That's the question, isn't it?" Ava replied. "Someone's hiding something. The spark of chaos." As the group observed, one of the human males approached the edge of the enclosure. His gaze locked onto Kalen's, and for a moment, it felt as though the entire universe had gone silent. There was an intensity in the human's eyes that sent a chill down Kalen's spine, an awareness that seemed far too sharp for a creature kept in captivity. The human's hand shot out, touching the energy barrier. Sparks erupted where his fingers met the field, and the dome flickered momentarily. The students exchanged uneasy glances. "Did you see that?" one of them murmured. "He's testing it. He's looking for a way out." Before Kalen could respond, the female human joined the male at the barrier. She began tapping on the energy field in a rhythmic pattern, her movements deliberate and precise. It wasn't random, it was communication. Within seconds, the other male joined her, and together, they worked in tandem, probing the field's weaknesses. "They're adapting," Kalen whispered, horrified and awed. "They're finding a way to escape." Ava's expression hardened. "This isn't just instinct. This is strategy." The energy dome flickered again, and a low hum began to emanate from its base. Panic rippled through the group as the realization hit them: the humans were on the verge of breaking free. A turning point. "Run!" Ava shouted, pulling Kalen back toward the path. The group scattered as a sharp crack split the air. Kalen glanced over his shoulder just in time to see the energy dome collapse. The humans stepped out of the enclosure, their movements purposeful and calm. They didn't charge after the students or lash out in aggression. Instead, they surveyed their surroundings with the air of predators assessing new territory. As Kalen and Ava fled, his mind raced. The humans had just turned a controlled environment into chaos, and they had done it without weapons, technology, or any apparent plan. They had relied solely on their instincts and intellect, and it had been enough to outsmart the Academy's safeguards. When they finally stopped to catch their breath, Ava looked at Kalen, her expression grim. "You wanted to understand humans. Now you've seen what they're capable of." Kalen nodded, his thoughts swirling with equal parts fear and admiration. Humans were not just survivors, they were disruptors, capable of reshaping any environment they entered. And now, the galaxy had to decide whether that was a strength or a threat. The unleashed force. The Academy was in chaos. The collapse of the containment field in the xenobiological preserve had sent shockwaves through the Galactic Academy's administrative network. Emergency protocols were activated, but it was too late. The 3 humans who had escaped the enclosure were now unaccounted for. The sprawling preserve, designed to simulate the unpredictable ecosystems of the galaxy, had become a hunting ground, and humans, as it turned out, were the hunters. Kalen sat in the secure briefing room, his mind a whirlwind of conflicting thoughts. Across the table, Ava leaned back in her chair, her usual confidence now tempered by a grim focus. Around them, holographic screens displayed real-time feeds of search teams combing through the preserve. Despite their advanced tracking systems, the humans were proving elusive. How did they manage this? Kalen finally asked, his voice breaking the heavy silence. Ava glanced at him, her expression unreadable. "You saw it yourself. They adapt. Faster than anyone expected." "But this goes beyond adaptation," Kalen pressed. "They were calculating, coordinated. It's as if they knew exactly what they were doing. The Academy's secret." Before Ava could respond, the door hissed open, and a tall figure entered. Chancellor Drev, a being with a crystalline body that refracted light into dazzling patterns, surveyed the room with a commanding presence. His voice was smooth but firm as he addressed the group. "You've both witnessed what transpired," he began. "It's time you learned the truth." Kalen and Ava exchanged wary glances as Drev activated a holographic display. It projected a timeline of human integration into the Galactic Academy, but the images soon shifted to something darker: clandestine experiments, covert research facilities, and unsettling reports of human behavior under controlled conditions. The humans in the preserve were part of a project, Drev admitted. An attempt to understand their potential, and their limits. Kalen felt a chill run through him. "You mean they were being experimented on?" Drev's crystalline form shimmered, a sign of discomfort. "We studied their resilience, their adaptability. But what we discovered was far beyond what we anticipated. Humans are not bound by the same limitations as other species. Their capacity for survival is matched only by their unpredictability." Ava's jaw tightened. "You treated them like test subjects. And now you're surprised they escaped?" Drev's gaze sharpened. "They're not just test subjects. They're a warning. If humanity's drive is left unchecked, it could destabilize the balance of the galaxy. The preserve's true nature. As Drev spoke, a new image appeared on the holographic display, a map of the preserve with heat signatures marking the humans' movements. They were no longer wandering aimlessly. Instead, they were converging on a central structure deep within the preserve, a control hub that managed the biome's artificial environments. They're heading for the control center, Drev said. If they access it, they could manipulate the entire preserve. Ava stood abruptly. Then we need to stop them. Drev nodded. You and Kalen will join the retrieval team. But be warned, these humans have already demonstrated capabilities that defy our understanding. Do not underestimate them. Into the unknown. The retrieval team, a mix of Academy security and xenobiology specialists, moved cautiously through the preserve. Kalen and Ava were at the center of the formation, their movements guided by a holomap displaying the human's trajectory. The dense foliage seemed to close in around them, the bioluminescent plants casting eerie shadows that danced with every step. As they approached the control hub, the team came to a sudden halt. The sound of rustling leaves and distant footsteps filled the air, sending a wave of tension through the group. Kalen's heart raced as his multifaceted eyes scanned the darkness. They're watching us, Ava whispered, her voice barely audible. A second later, chaos erupted. The encounter. The humans struck with precision. Using the terrain to their advantage, they ambushed the team, disarming several members before they could react. Kalen found himself face to face with one of the males, a towering figure with a calculating gaze that seemed to pierce through him. Wait! Kalen shouted, raising his hands in a gesture of surrender. We're not here to harm you. The human paused, his head tilting slightly as if assessing the sincerity of Kalen's words. The brief moment of hesitation was enough for Ava to step forward. We just want to talk, she said firmly. You've already proven your point. Let's figure out a way to resolve this without further conflict. The human's expression softened slightly, but his stance remained defensive. Talk, he said, his voice low and rough. After what your kind has done. Kalen's breath caught. The human wasn't just reacting to the current situation, he was speaking from a place of deep mistrust and betrayal. It was a reminder that humans, for all their adaptability, carried the scars of their past experiences. We didn't know, Kalen said, his voice earnest. Most of us had no idea what was happening here. But now that we do, we want to make it right. The human studied him for a long moment before finally lowering his stance. Then start by letting us leave. We're not animals to be caged. A fragile alliance. The tension in the air began to dissipate as the humans stepped back, allowing the team to regroup. Ava exchanged a glance with Kalen, her expression one of cautious optimism. We'll speak to the Academy, she promised. But you need to trust us. The female human stepped forward, her gaze steady. Trust is earned. We'll give you a chance, but only one. As the retrieval team escorted the humans back to the Academy, Kalen couldn't help but marvel at their resilience. They had turned the preserve, a controlled and dangerous environment, into their battlefield, and emerged victorious not through brute force, but through strategy and determination. It was clear now that humanity was not a threat to be contained, but a force to be reckoned with. The question that remained was whether the galaxy would see them as allies, or adversaries. A deal with chaos. The Academy's council chamber was a monument to order and diplomacy, a vast circular room where decisions that shaped the galaxy were made. Today, it was a stage for something unprecedented. At the center of the chamber stood the three escaped humans, flanked by Kalen and Ava, while Chancellor Drev presided over the meeting with an air of barely concealed tension. The humans were no longer the restless figures Kalen had seen in the preserve. Their tattered clothing had been replaced with clean uniforms provided by the Academy, but their sharp, unyielding expressions remained. The leader, the male who had spoken to Kalen in the preserve, scanned the room with an intensity that silenced even the boldest murmurs. "We shouldn't be here," the female human muttered, her voice low but firm. "This is their stage, not ours." Her counterpart, standing taller, replied, "If they want to understand us, they'll have to listen first." Kalen watched the exchange with a mixture of awe and unease. Humans were not just unpredictable, they were unapologetic in their defiance. For a species so often labeled as chaotic, they carried themselves with a striking sense of purpose. The Council's challenge. Chancellor Drev began the proceedings. His crystalline form refracted the chamber's light into a kaleidoscope of colors, giving him an aura of authority. "Humans," he addressed them, his tone neutral but edged with caution. "You have disrupted the sanctity of this institution, violated its protocols, and endangered its students. Explain yourselves." The human leader stepped forward, unflinching. "You caged us," he said simply. "We acted to survive." A wave of murmurs rippled through the chamber. Kalen noticed several council members exchanging uneasy glances. The human's directness was both disarming and unsettling. "We were brought here without our consent," the female human added. "Studied like specimens. How would any of you have reacted in our place?" Drev's crystalline surface shimmered with faint irritation. "You were part of an experiment to understand your species' potential. It was a scientific endeavor, not an act of malice. Your intentions don't justify your actions," the human replied coldly. "You stripped us of our agency. And now, you're surprised we fought back. A surprising proposal." Ava stepped forward, her voice steady but firm. "Chancellor, this situation has escalated because of secrecy and mistrust. If the Academy wants to learn from humanity, it needs to engage them as equals, not as subjects." Kalen felt a surge of admiration for Ava's boldness. Her words hung in the air, challenging the room to consider a new path. The council's reaction was mixed, some nodded in agreement, while others bristled at the suggestion. One of the council members, a towering reptilian being, hissed in disapproval. "Their unpredictability is dangerous. Allowing them greater freedom will only invite chaos." The human leader smiled faintly, his expression unreadable. "Chaos isn't always destructive. Sometimes, it's the spark that drives progress." The words struck a chord in Kalen. Humanity's defiance wasn't aimless, it was a force of change, one that could reshape the galaxy's rigid structures. But could the Academy embrace such a volatile ally? Chancellor Drev raised a hand to silence the room. "If we are to move forward, we must find common ground. Humans, what is it that you want?" The female human's eyes narrowed. "Freedom. No cages, no experiments. Treat us with the same respect you demand from us." The unexpected alliance. The council deliberated for what felt like hours. Arguments clashed like thunder, but the humans stood unwavering, their presence a silent challenge to the Academy's authority. Kalen and Ava remained at their side, their support unspoken but clear. Finally, Chancellor Drev spoke. "The Council has reached a decision. The humans will be granted temporary resident status within the Academy. They will be free to move about as students and collaborators, but under supervision. This arrangement will be revisited after a trial period." The decision was met with mixed reactions. Some council members expressed relief, while others fumed silently. The humans, however, showed no visible reaction, as if they had expected nothing less. "One condition," the human leader said, his voice calm but firm. "We're not here to prove ourselves to you. We're here to show what we can offer. If you fail to see that, this alliance will end before it begins." Drev's crystalline surface flickered, the only sign of his unease. "Very well. The spark of change." As the chamber emptied, Kalen found himself walking beside Ava and the humans. The tension of the day was slowly giving way to a tentative camaraderie. "You were bold in there," Kalen said, addressing the human leader. The man glanced at him, a flicker of amusement in his eyes. Boldness is survival. You should try it sometime. The female human smirked. Careful, Ken. We're supposed to be making friends, not enemies. Kalen chuckled despite himself. I think you've made an impression, for better or worse. As they exited the chamber, Ava turned to the humans. This trial period isn't just for you. It's for the Academy, too. If we can find a way to work together, it could change everything. The human leader nodded. We'll see if the galaxy is ready for us. Kalen couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Humanity's presence in the Academy would challenge its traditions, its assumptions, and perhaps even its future. But one thing was clear, the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity's first lesson. The corridors of the Galactic Academy were quieter than usual, as though the institution itself was holding its breath. Rumors of the Council's decision to grant the humans temporary residency had spread like wildfire, sparking debates in every lecture hall and common area. Opinions ranged from cautious optimism to outright hostility. For many, the humans represented an unpredictable force that could disrupt the fragile equilibrium of galactic harmony. Kalen watched from a distance as the three humans were escorted to their assigned quarters. They moved with a quiet confidence that contrasted sharply with the tension around them. Ava stood beside him, arms crossed, her sharp eyes never leaving the humans. They don't seem fazed, Kalen observed. They're used to it, Ava replied. Humans thrive in the face of skepticism. It's practically their defining trait. Kalen tilted his head. And what about you? Do you think they belong here? Ava didn't answer immediately. Her gaze softened as she watched the humans disappear around a corner. I think the Academy needs them more than it realizes. An unusual classroom. The next day, the humans attended their first seminar as official residents of the Academy. The topic, fittingly, was adaptive survival strategies among galactic species. The lecture hall was packed, with students from across the cosmos eager to see how the newcomers would fare in an academic setting. Kalen and Ava arrived early, taking seats near the back to observe. Professor Threx, a multi-limbed insectoid with a penchant for strict discipline, presided over the seminar. His compound eyes scanned the room before settling on the humans. Since we have new participants today, he began, his voice clicking with precision, it seems appropriate to test their knowledge. The room grew silent as Threx addressed the human leader, Ken. You, human. Explain how your species has adapted to overcome environmental challenges on your homeworld. Ken leaned back in his seat, unfazed by the sudden spotlight. We didn't just adapt to our environment, he said. We reshaped it. When nature pushed, we pushed back harder. A murmur spread through the room. Threx's mandibles twitched in what might have been disapproval. Reshaping one's environment often leads to ecological imbalance. How do you account for such recklessness? Ken smiled faintly. We learn from our mistakes. But survival doesn't wait for perfection. Sometimes, action is the only choice. The human perspective. Another student, a serpentine being from the planet Kilner, raised a question. Your approach sounds reckless. How do you maintain balance when your method seems so aggressive? The female human, Maya, spoke this time. Balance is important, but it's not always achievable in the moment. What matters is resilience, having the ability to recover and adapt when things don't go as planned. Ava leaned toward Kalen, whispering, they're not just defending themselves, they're redefining the argument. Kalen nodded, impressed. The humans weren't apologizing for their methods. Instead, they were presenting their adaptability as a strength, a philosophy that embraced imperfection and relentless forward motion. Threx, however, was not easily swayed. Adaptability alone does not ensure survival. Cooperation and harmony are equally vital. How does your species address the balance between individual drive and collective good? The third human, a quiet man named Elias, finally spoke. We fight. Sometimes with each other, sometimes for each other. It's messy, but it works. And when it doesn't, we learn and try again. The room divided. The seminar became a heated exchange, with students from other species challenging the humans at every turn. Despite the pressure, the humans held their ground, their responses measured but unapologetic. Kalen could see the impact they were having. Some students were clearly intrigued, while others grew increasingly frustrated. By the end of the seminar, the room felt charged with a strange energy. As the students filed out, Kalen and Ava approached the humans, who were gathering their things. You handled yourselves well, Ava said, her tone neutral but approving. Ken shrugged. We're used to defending our place. This isn't the first time, and it won't be the last. Kalen hesitated before speaking. You've made an impression, but not all of it is positive. Some see you as a threat. Ken met his gaze. Let them. Fear isn't always a bad thing. It makes people pay attention. The first ripple. Later that evening, Kalen and Ava sat in the Academy's observation deck, overlooking the sprawling preserve. The stars beyond the artificial dome twinkled with a serene indifference to the day's events. They've shifted the dynamic, Kalen said, breaking the silence. Not just in the seminar, but in the entire Academy. It feels different now. Ava nodded. Humans don't just adapt to their environment, they make the environment adapt to them. The Academy is starting to feel that shift. But is it a good thing? Kalen asked. Ava smiled faintly. That depends on whether the galaxy is ready to embrace change, or resist it. As they sat in quiet reflection, Kalen couldn't shake the feeling that humanity's presence at the Academy was only the beginning. The humans weren't just participants in the galactic community, they were catalysts, stirring the pot of a carefully maintained equilibrium. And while the outcome remained uncertain, one thing was clear, the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity's rising flame. The Galactic Academy had always prided itself on balance, an intricate dance of cultures, technologies, and philosophies that allowed countless civilizations to coexist. But now, that balance was tilting. The humans, with their relentless drive and unapologetic nature, were not just participants in the Academy, they were a force reshaping it. In the days following their first seminar, the humans became a polarizing presence. They were approached with equal measures of curiosity and caution. Some students sought them out to learn more, intrigued by their perspectives. Others avoided them altogether, wary of their potential to disrupt the fragile order. For Kalen, the humans were no longer just a curiosity, they were a question that demanded an answer. Their presence had awakened something in him, a restless need to understand not just who they were, but what they could become. And tonight, that question would take center stage. The Emergency Council. The Academy's central dome, a towering structure of crystalline elegance, was abuzz with activity. An emergency council meeting had been called, and representatives from every department were present. The humans, it seemed, had done more than disrupt a seminar, they had inspired a wave of debates and challenges that rippled through the Academy. Kalen and Ava arrived together, their expressions tense. The council chamber was already filled, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. At the center stood the three humans, calm and unyielding despite the weight of the attention on them. Chancellor Drev addressed the assembly. His crystalline body shimmered with refracted light, a visual manifestation of his barely concealed frustration. The presence of humans at this academy has sparked unprecedented controversy. While some argue that their perspectives are invaluable, others warn that their influence threatens our stability. A reptilian council member hissed in agreement. They are a disruption. Their unpredictability is a danger we cannot afford. Another voice, melodic and deliberate, countered. Perhaps it is precisely their unpredictability that we need. The galaxy is not a stagnant entity. If we are to grow, we must embrace change. The humans speak. Chancellor Drev turned to the humans. You have been given a voice in this discussion. Speak your case. Ken, the human leader, stepped forward. His movements were deliberate, his gaze unflinching. We didn't come here to disrupt your balance. But we won't apologize for being who we are. If our presence challenges you, then maybe it's time to reconsider what balance really means. His words were met with murmurs of both approval and dissent. Maya, the female human, took a step forward, her voice carrying a quiet intensity. Your stability is built on preservation, but preservation isn't the same as progress. Sometimes, disruption is necessary to move forward. Elias, the quietest of the three, added, we've survived because we adapt. We thrive because we question. If that makes us dangerous, then maybe the danger isn't us, it's the refusal to adapt. Their words hung in the air, a challenge that no one could ignore. A fractured alliance. The council erupted into debate. Voices clashed like a storm, each representative fighting to sway the conversation. Kalen watched in silence, his mind racing. The humans were not merely defending themselves, they were redefining the Academy's purpose. Ava leaned closer to him, her voice low. This isn't just about humans anymore. It's about the galaxy's future. They're forcing us to confront what we've been avoiding for centuries. Kalen nodded. But not everyone is ready for that confrontation. As the debate raged on, Chancellor Drev called for order. Enough, he commanded, his voice resonating through the chamber. We cannot allow this division to fester. A decision must be made. The turning point. The room fell silent as Drev addressed the humans. Your presence here has stirred both admiration and fear. If you wish to remain, you must prove that your influence will not lead to chaos. Ken met his gaze without flinching. We don't want to destroy your balance. But we won't conform to it either. If you want progress, you have to accept that it comes with risks. The council deliberated, their voices hushed but urgent. Finally, Drev announced their decision. The humans will remain, but their continued presence will depend on their ability to integrate into our community without causing undue disruption. The humans exchanged a glance, their expressions unreadable. Maya was the first to speak. We'll prove ourselves. Not by fitting into your expectations, but by showing you what's possible when you embrace the unexpected. A new dawn. As the meeting concluded, Kalen and Ava approached the humans. That was bold, Kalen said. You've set a high bar for yourselves. Ken smiled faintly. We're used to climbing. It's what we do. Maya added, this isn't just about us. It's about showing the galaxy that progress doesn't come from staying comfortable. Kalen couldn't help but admire their conviction. Humanity's presence at the Academy was more than a test, it was a catalyst. Their drive, their resilience, their refusal to back down, it was a force that could reshape the galaxy, for better or worse. As the humans left the chamber, Kalen turned to Ava. Do you think they'll succeed? Ava's expression softened. If anyone can force the galaxy to rethink itself, it's them. And as the stars outside the Academy shone brighter than ever, Kalen felt a flicker of hope. Humanity's flame had been lit, and it was only a matter of time before it illuminated the galaxy's darkest corners.